Photographs play an important part in the preservation of human history, but how many historical images would you recognize? Some reveal interesting and significant truths about human development over the decades, which is why you should see these upcoming historical images before you die. This photo is exactly what it looks like. A 60-foot tall, 40-foot wide mountain of animal skulls and bones. Nowadays, the city of Regina, capital of Saskatchewan, Canada, is lush and green. But when this photo was taken in 1882, it was literally a pile of bones. Its nickname today. This is because the nearby Wascana Creek was an incredibly popular spot for bison hunters who deposited remains on the banks. An estimated 30 to 60 million bison were slaughtered during this time after the first Canadian Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, ordered a bison extermination in a bid to starve the indigenous Indian population into depending on Canada for food. Although the skulls were ground down into fertilizer, a haunting photo like this is enough to remind us of the ugly side of history. This image might not even strike you as historical. After all, when was the last time you heard that the Army were flying around on man-sized hover drones? Well, that'd be because this early US military prototype, known as the Huller VZ-1 Pawnee, designed to propel soldiers through the air during combat, never made it into production. Although the platform was dynamically stable, the Army judged the aircraft to be impractical for combat due to its small size and inability to fly very fast or any higher than 33 feet off the ground. If anything, this failed invention does show how even war can lead to innovation. Here's another failed invention which, as bizarre as it looks, isn't far off the immersive VR headsets many have tested today. What looks kinda like a submarine mask is actually a television helmet designed by concept artist Walter Pickler, who created the mock-up in 1967. This bulky headpiece was intended to completely isolate the user, focusing them entirely on the screen in front of them. Sounds more like a torture device than a novelty gadget. In fact, this design raised questions about our relationship with the media long before the digital world, and concerns over screen time existed. So maybe history doesn't always seem so far away. The television helmet might seem less than desirable, but this image of the Comfort lawnmower actually looks pretty luxurious. Seen here during a demo in Port Washington on October 14, 1957, this marketed power mower of the future featured a sphere which was 5 feet in diameter, complete with air-cushioned seats, operating running lights, radio telephone, air conditioning, and even a cooling system for drinks. Although this nifty prototype was fully functioning, it was considered far too impractical for mass production. It might offer a taste of what could have been, but a fully automated mower seems a more likely solution for time-saving purposes today. Ever wondered how people made sure they didn't oversleep in an age before the life-saving alarm clock? People like the guy in this photo are your answer, known as knocker-uppers, which would probably have a whole different meaning nowadays. These individuals were hired to wake workers up every morning using long sticks, pebbles, or even pea shooters. It does beg the question, how did these so-called knocker-uppers ensure they weren't late for their own waking up duties each morning? We take even the smallest and most convenient inventions for granted these days. Body snatching sounds like something out of an 80s sci-fi novel, but this was actually a pretty well-known term during the 19th century, and a big problem too. Men like the ones in this image would remove corpses from their graves to sell to universities as medical cadavers, which were difficult to obtain legally. Preventative measures to stop these resurrectionists included supervision of the recently dead by relatives and strong iron coffins called mort safes. But the problem only worsened when the notorious Burke and Hare started murdering people instead to sell for the same purpose. Nowadays, we have undisturbed eternal sleep thanks to the Anatomy Act of 1832, which allowed unclaimed bodies to be used medically. This image might look like a staged movie shoot, but it depicts real-life French wrestler Maurice Tillet, known in the ring as the French Angel, alongside supermodel Dorian Lee in 1945. Tillet was diagnosed with acromegaly at an early age, which caused the rapid growth of his adult bones, and it's widely believed that he's the inspiration for DreamWorks' Shrek. Seriously, you can't unsee it now. You might be thinking, what am I looking at in this photo? A tiny man inside a giant shell? In fact, this wacky-looking invention, known as the Nautilus after the sea mollusk of the same name, is a wind turbine built in Germany in the 1930s. These spiral turbines were designed to increase wind output while producing as little sound as possible by replicating the mathematic Fibonacci sequence, which happens to appear throughout nature. It may look incredibly bulky and nothing like the sleek, eco-saving turbines we're used to seeing today, but Fibonacci turbines are still being designed today, proving that innovation never stops. This isn't a photo of Hitler lookalikes, nor is it an image which confirms Adolf as one in a set of sextuplets, which doesn't really bear thinking about. Instead, this photo was circulated in American newspapers in June 1944 after U.S. intelligence feared that the Fuhrer would flee Germany incognito. To combat this potential threat, artist Eddie Sins was hired to produce a series of mock-up images which showed what he might look like, most of which seemed more like classic comedy sketches. Who knew someone so dangerous could hide among us using just a pair of joke shop spectacles? Here's a charming image of some local elderly woman in 1960. Some surprisingly hairy, stern-featured women. Wait a second! These sweet old ladies are actually seasoned police officers in the LAPD who, on October 15, 1960, donned their best pensioner drag to apprehend a notorious purse snatcher in the area. It's truly commendable the efforts these men would take to protect their citizens, but I have to wonder why LAPD's drag race didn't catch on. This impressive image shows what's believed to be a 25-foot wide, 5,000-pound giant manta ray, known locally as the devilfish, caught by A.L. Kahn off the coast of New Jersey on August 26, 1933. But how much of this photograph is entirely true? Obviously, Photoshop wasn't around back then to alter the scale, but although Kahn did ensnare such a beast that day, the one pictured here is a taxidermist preservation of the creature. This is because Kahn turned his catch into a local attraction, charging 10 cents for each visitor, and ultimately raised enough money to buy the local fire service a new $3,000 fire truck. The lovely lady in this photo looks like something straight out of the closet in Monsters, Inc., but her full-face swimming mask was actually a reasonable choice of swimwear in the US during the 1920s. With minimal eye, nose, and mouth cutouts, its purpose was to protect women from the sun. And not just because sunscreen hadn't been invented yet. In those days, a dark tan was associated with having lack of wealth and being part of lower classes, because it was agriculture workers who spent long days out in the sun. What seems like an outdated class marker is a value held even today in East Asia, where a pale complexion is still associated with prosperity. So much so that the Facekini has recently come back into fashion. It just goes to show, history does repeat itself. The 100-Acre Wood is home to childhood favorites Tigger, Piglet, and Winnie the Pooh himself. But what's the inspiration behind these beloved tales? Pictured here are the real Christopher Robin, the son of author A.A. Milne, and his treasured Pooh Bear, a first birthday gift, photographed in 1926. What might look like a treasured memory is more likely a painful one, because young Christopher came to resent his father for essentially exploiting his childhood, which he expressed in his own series of memoirs about growing up in a fictional shadow. Sometimes the sweetest images hold the darkest past. What looks like your average, grainy image of an old lady is actually a historical artifact which has been the source of great debate. Born in 1746, Hannah Stilley, pictured here, is widely thought of as the earliest born person ever documented on a photo, and the oldest known woman alive when she was captured on film in 1840. Some reports have doubted the legitimacy of this claim though, because there's little evidence proving Hannah is actually the woman pictured. She doesn't appear on the 1840 federal census, so she possibly died before the age of photography made this image possible. Sometimes a photo poses more questions than answers. This creepy looking baby isn't just dressed in robes for a costume party. You're looking at the Dalai Lama himself. Well, the current version when he was 4 years old, whose religious name is Tenzin Gyatso. In fact, he was selected to become the 14th Dalai Lama in 1937, 3 years before this photo was taken. The Dalai Lama is the spiritual leader of the Gelig school of Tibetan Buddhism, and he's believed to have the power to choose the body into which he is reincarnated. So once he dies, the High Lamas have the responsibility to search for the body he's been reincarnated into. They find the new one through visions they may have and test possible boys. For example, presenting the boy with a number of items to see if he can select those which belong to the previous Dalai Lama. This probably looks like a horror scene. Maimed bodies lying on the sidewalk after some vicious attack. But the people pictured here are actually waxwork figures fire damaged by a blaze in Madame Tussauds London in 1925. The huge fire wiped out a whole host of celebrity waxworks and put the attraction out of business until its reopening in 1928. And the only survivor was a caged parrot, which was thought to be wax until it started moving. Without images like this, such quirky historical moments might be forgotten. There's been some pretty bizarre images in this video, but this one surely takes the cake. After all, what practical purpose could this human porcupine suit of armor serve? An email from 1998 estimates the suit to be from the 1800s and describes its use as bear hunting and close-range defense, as the leather suit and iron helmet was studded all over with 1-inch iron nails. However, others have speculated that this viral image actually originates from a surrealist art exhibition where the only known suit still exists. Although its true origins cannot be pinpointed exactly, this historical image is a reminder to not believe everything you see online. Most will be familiar with this image of beauty icon and Hollywood actress Marilyn Monroe in the movie The 7-Year Itch. But what about this action shot of the moment it being filmed? As you can see, the scene was filmed in front of a large crowd in New York City to drum up hype around the movie. Just imagine being there in that moment. Even the grate itself is a well sought after reminder of this iconic Hollywood image. From glam to gore, this historical image shows the public beheading of German serial killer Eugene Weidman in France in June 1939. Around 600 people flocked to witness this event, and some even reportedly turned up around 4 hours before it was due to begin, causing such a scandalous spectacle that the French government finally concluded public executions should be banned altogether, making this one of the last captured on camera. Pictured here is former schoolteacher Annie Edson Taylor, alongside her self-designed barrel, which she used to become the first person to survive a trip over Niagara Falls. This daredevil successfully completed the attempt on her 63rd birthday in 1901, after lying about being in her 40s, and made history breaking the strict female stereotypes of her day. The whole thing took around 20 minutes and was an attempt to market herself as the famous heroine of the Niagara Falls. Her popularity fizzled out fast, but her legacy lives on in this image. How many of these historical photos made you think twice about what you know about our past? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.